So I want to create several work planes in here, and again it will help us if we have a line going through here. Maybe we won't need that line, we'll see. Alright, so I'm going to make sure that my cam release lever is the active component, and then I'm going to create a plane along path, and I'll select this curve. I want it at the end of that path. And one thing to watch on this is, let's say that you wanted something at the end point here. If you turn off this tangent chain, then you could just select that particular arc and put it at that end point. And I didn't notice that earlier when I was having trouble where I wanted to put a point at the end of a curve, turn off that tangent chain. But in any case, let's change this to 1, and we'll say OK to that. And then for the next one, I want it to go through this point, and so I'm going to do offset, and I will select the origin plane. I want it parallel to this plane through that point, and so I'll tell it to go to object this point, and I'll put it parallel. And then I want to do one at this location or perpendicular to this plane. So let's just do that one perpendicular. We could do offset again, but I'm going to do plane at angle, so we get an idea of how to use these various plane tools. And then I want one up here, so I'll do plane at angle again, and I could do offset through that point. We'll do plane at angle through this line, and I want that one to be 90 degrees. And then I'll do plane along path, and I could do this one as parallel, but I'll do plane along path. And if I try to select this curve, it's going all the way around that curve, but I want it at that end point. Now I could select this point right here as well, and then I could put it at the end. If I turn off though this tangent edge, notice I could get just this edge, and so I'll select though this edge, and I'm going to put that at 0 so that it's at the beginning of that curve. And I might resize some of these planes or move them down. So let's move that edges down to here, maybe make this a little bit smaller. Now we have to keep in mind that we're working in a 3D environment, and I'll bring this one down. So this is just for aesthetics. The location is, or the size of it actually goes out to infinity. Maybe make this one a little bit bigger so we can see this plane, and then we are ready to start creating our sketches on these planes, and that will be a real similar process to what we did previously. And I decided that I don't want this plane perpendicular to this path, so we need to redefine that plane. So I'm going to right click and I'll say edit feature, and for the path I'm going to turn off tangent chains so I can select this edge, and then I'll put that and it looks like it's still getting this curve up here, and so I'm going to see if I can control unselect that curve, and it doesn't look like I'm able to unselect that curve, and so I might have to just do this particular plane over again. So I'll delete that one and put it in again. So I'll delete that, and I'll put my plane in here again. So I'll do plane along path. I'll turn off the tangent edge. I'll put it at the end of this one, so I'll do 0, and I want that to be in order. It doesn't really matter, but I like for it to be in order down here at this end. Alright, so then I can do my sketch on that plane. So I'll do a new sketch, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'll put this out here in space. I'm going to make the width of that rectangle, and actually I haven't decided what the width will be just yet. So I'll go ahead and put the rectangle in here, and I'm going to change change these two lines to construction lines. So I'll select those two horizontal lines and change those to construction. I'm going to do a 3-point arc from here to here. I'll make it tangent to those lines, and then I'll dimension the radius of this arc as 0.35, and I'm going to dimension the distance from here to here as 0.1, and then I'm going to put coincident between, I'll do this point right here, and I want to get the midpoint of that, so I'll do shift, select the midpoint of this line, so I have those coincident, and everything turned black, and I realized that I really want this point up here. I don't really care where that point is, so let me undo that, and I'll do coincident again, and I'll shift, get the midpoint of this curve, and I'll put that at that location. So that sketch turns dark, that sketch is fully defined. We're ready to do our next sketch. So for our next sketch, I'll start a new sketch on this plane, and I'm going to, I didn't get it, so let's do that again, and then I'm going to project this line, so I'll do P for project. I'll select this line projected up here, and then I'm going to change that to a construction line, and then I'm going to draw a line going down from the midpoint of this line, something like that. I'll change this line to a construction line, and then I'm going to draw a circle somewhere on this line, but not at the midpoint, not here, not here, not at the midpoint. I'll do it somewhere on this line out to the end of that line, and I'll change the radius of this, so I'll dimension this, and I'm going to right click, I'll do a radius dimension, and I don't know what I did there, so let's try that again. Dimension, I'll select a circle, right click and tell it radius, and let's do this as 0.235. Right, then I want the midpoint of this line to be down here at this location, and so I'm going to project this line into the sketch. So I'll do P for project. I'll select that line, and I get that point projected, and then I will do coincident, and I'll shift, or actually I have a projecting line here. I don't even need that to do the shift. Get this point down to here, and then I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to click and hold. Notice it's going to put a tangent. I'll draw that up to this point, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. So I'll click and hold, I'll drag that up to this point, then I'm going to trim off the top portion of this arc so that I just have this U shape like that. Now this looks a little bit different than what I was expecting, so I need to make a decision on exactly how I want this to look. After some consideration, I decided that I don't want this as wide as it is, so I'm going to delete the coincident constraint on this end, and I'll delete the coincident constraint on this end. So I'm going to drag that over about there. I'll drag this over about here, and I want this point and this point to be symmetrical though about this line. But let's go ahead and dimension this distance from here to here, and I'm going to do that as 0.53, and then I will do symmetry. This point and this point is symmetrical about this line. It all turns black. It's all fully constrained. So notice now I have a slight angle in this U shape that I've created. So that is our third sketch completed for the cam release lever. I'll go ahead and save it, and we'll prepare to do the next sketch. For the next sketch, I'll select this plane. I'll tell it to do a new sketch on that plane. Let's see if I can get this. and then I will draw a rectangle in space here someplace, and I'm going to then draw a arc. I'll do my 3-point arc from here to here, down where it's tangent. I will change these two lines to construction lines, and so pay attention to the slight differences that I do between each sketches. So this one was kind of a angled shape. This one, the lines are vertical, and I will dimension the radius of this arc, and I will do that at 0.235, and then I'm going to project geometry. So I'll do P for project, and I am now on this plane, so I will project this line right here, or this point. I'll get this point right here, and I will also get this point right here. I'll say OK to that, and then I'll do coincident the shift midpoint of this curve to this point, and then the line up here to this point. It's all fully defined, and so that completes that sketch, and we'll go on to the next sketch. Our next sketch will be the same as this previous sketch, and so I'm going to start a new sketch on this plane, and I will P for project, and I'll select this line, this curve, and this line, and that finishes this sketch. And so then we'll go to this plane, and we'll do a new sketch on this plane, and I'm going to draw a rectangle out in space, and I'll change these two lines to construction, and then I'll do my tangent arc. So I'll select here, I'll go down to where it shows tangent. I will dimension the radius of this arc as 0.2, and then I will project geometry. So I'll do P for project, and I'm going to get this point from previous sketch, or I'll get this one back here, and I'll also project this point down here. I'll say OK to that, and then I'll do coincident this point to the midpoint of this line. Now make sure you get this point down here, not this point up here, and then I will do this line to this point, and that finishes that sketch. It's all fully constrained. I then want to loft across these profiles, and so I'll go to my surface tools, and I'll go to create a surface loft, and with chain select on, I'll select this chain, and then I'll go to the next chain, and I'll go to the next chain. And so the projected geometry, it doesn't select in a chain, so I'll unselect chain select, and then I'll go and select these 3 pieces of geometry, and then I'll put chain select back on again, and I'll select this one, and I'll say OK to that. Again, I prefer to change the color of this so that I know that it's a surface body. So I'll go to my bodies, I'll right click, I'll go to the appearance of that, and I'm going to drag that appearance onto this body, and I may make that transparent, or it's pretty obvious by my color that I'm using, but I may or may not make that transparent. I'm then going to do trim, and I will select this line to trim the, and I'll select up here, and I'll go around and make sure that it's, I need to also get that side, and I'll say OK to that, and so I have trimmed that off. I'm also going to trim a hole, so I'll do trim, I'll select this circle, I want to trim this, and I want to trim that, and I'll say OK to that, and then I will hide my sketch 1. So I have the surface body that I need, and then I will thicken this to get the solid body. Now I'll go to my thicken command, and I'll select this, and for the thickness on this one I'm going to go towards the inside, so I need to put in negative. It's going towards the outside, so I'll do negative 0.088, and I'll say OK to that to get that solid body. Now later on we're going to assemble this and attempt to make it operate. I'm going to do a little bit of a trick or fudge here in order to make this easier to work when we assemble it. So I'm going to create a plane, so I'll do a plane through 3 points, and I will select this point, and this point, or I could have selected this point back here, and I'll make this plane through those 3 points. So when we put the cam in here, we'll make the cam tangent to this plane if we can. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to do that or not. Rather than tangent to the surface would be a more complex mathematically for the solver to do. And so we'll see if we can use that plane, but I'm not sure if we'll be able to. But we've got it there, so if we need it. And so if we review what we have so far, so we have put in these components which I have given to you, and we'll cut a thread on this component. We've created this component, we've created this one. We'll create the cam that goes in here, and then the pins that go in here, or the rivets to hold this together. And then we'll do some special work with this spring, and so we will come back to that and complete the assembly.